This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
When it comes to weight loss, no two people are the same. That's why Noom builds personalized plans based on your unique psychology and biology. Take Brittany. After years of unsustainable diets, Noom helped her lose 20 pounds and keep it off.
I was definitely in a yo-yo cycle for years of just losing weight, gaining weight, and it was exhausting.
And Stephanie. She's a former D1 athlete who knew she couldn't out-train her diet, and she lost 38 pounds.
My relationship to food before Noom was never consistent.
And Evan, he can't stand salads, but he still lost 50 pounds with Noom.
I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. Even through the pickiness, Noom taught me that building better habits builds a healthier lifestyle. I'm not doing this to get to a number. I'm doing this to feel better.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom users compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
This is Writers on Film, the only podcast dedicated to books on cinema. Hello everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. My name is John Bleasdale. I am a critic and writer, and today I'm going to be talking to Stephen Bradley, who is a film director, a film producer, a writer, and he is also someone who has written an amazing book, a really interesting, intimate account of his battle with cancer and how it relates to his career as a filmmaker. It's called Shooting and Cutting, A Survivor's Guide to Filmmaking and Other Diseases. And it was one of those films, I read it in 2 sittings, essentially 2 train journeys, forwards and backwards. And I was so, despite the fact that it's obviously dealing with very serious subject matter, it's so funny and it's so intimate in the way he shares his experience with the reader, that it was just amazing. Absolutely, really, really highly recommended. Anyway, you'll be able to tell that from the conversation that you're about to listen to. If you enjoy the episode, please remember to like, to spread the word, to subscribe to the podcast if you're not already subscribing. You can follow me on Twitter at Dr. John TDRJONTY. But before you do any of that, please enjoy the conversation.
And the other thing I have to ask you is, are you a vampire? Because you were tweeting about Athena at 4 o'clock in the morning.
No, I'm just old. I just get up in the middle of the night. I use my phone as a flashlight to get to the toilet, and then without waking my wife, and I'm obviously, I don't know about you, but I've recently discovered the joys of sit down peeing.
Oh yes, well you see, when you have my condition, that's kind of sort of becomes prerequisite. And yeah, well, exactly.
I have no such excuse, just laziness.
I think, to be honest with you, I think all men should be taught that from an early age.
Standing is only for emergencies. It's just for the roadside piss you can stand. But yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, Twitter is killing me. I really have to sort of cut down on it because it's because I just can't help scrolling through and commenting on stuff. That, by the way, that film Athena is something else. It's really gobsmacking.
I watched the trailer. Yeah, did it get a theatrical release or what?
No, it went straight. I mean, that was one of the problems with. I saw it at Venice at the film festival. That's one of the problems with Netflix. Had about 5 or 6 titles, and almost every single one I thought, this will be so good on the big screen. I mean, I'm watching it on the big screen, and this is so good. I can't wait to. And then, of course, you think White Noise, Noah Baumbach's film. Bardo, I didn't particularly like, but it's a big screen movie. It deserves, deserves to be up on the big screen. I mean, what's good about it is its sort of epicness. And yeah, this film is just like, it has long, continuous shots, and it's just so, I mean, it does that so well. I know that's become a real cliche, but it's done so well.
Yeah, no, the one in the opening shot of the trailer is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I would watch it as soon as you can, because I just
well, I have invested in a lovely big screen and a nice projector, so I will watch it on that.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
I think that's Netflix's presumption, is that people are watching on huge tellies and projecting screens, and therefore, and with sound bars and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And when I say big screen, I have the biggest TV I could buy, and I remember my film education was a black and white portable television with a dial balanced on dirty chair by my bed.
Yeah. I remember those days.
When did you first sort of start getting into movies? What was your sort of, what were the films that blew you away?
Well, sadly, I really wanted to be an actor to begin with. And that sort of mirage was blown out of the water pretty early. I did a theater tour in America after I left college, and I kind of realized how tough it was on the road, and also how mediocre I was as an actor. So that kind of went out the window. So then I started turning towards film. And actually, it's not in my book, but the first film I worked on was My Left Foot. I worked on as an assistant to the producer. And that was kind of an interesting start. And I suppose around that time, the films that were blowing my mind as well, but just before that would have been Blue Velvet and a lot of David Lynch and those kind of, I mean, I suppose American mainstream films. As a kid, I would have been into, James Bond and all of those things. And I mentioned that I used to go and persuade. We didn't have a television when I was a child. So
what horror is that?
I know. And my parents tell the story of how we visited my grandfather on Christmas Day, and he did have a telly, and how I wanted them to stop at 2:00 in the morning at a television shop to buy a television. So I had that obsession, they gave that obsession to me. And as I say in the book, I tried to persuade them to go to James Bond double bills with me, and then they could go out for dinner afterwards. That was their reward.
Were they not having televisions because they were sort of terrible hippies, or what was the excuse?
No, I think it was kind of a hardworking Protestant aesthetic.
Right. That's not hippie-ish at all.
No, it was much more pure. It was much more Spartan than that. In the Ireland of my youth, which was really the 70s and early 80s, American cinema was kind of everything. We didn't have access to really art house cinema at all. So when I say American cinema, obviously I'm lumping James Bond in with that. But it would have been a very limited fare that we would have had access to. And I mean, I lived in Cork for a lot of my childhood, and that would have made it even more limited. So it was really just an obsession with those sort of 70s films.
I remember when I wanted to be an actor, I remember telling my dad I wanted to be Roger Moore, and he was like, I thought you said an actor.
Good for your dad.
My dad's criticism was always wooden. That was his sort of like, there were hams and there were people who were wooden. Michael Caine, wooden.
Oh, brilliant. Hams and woodeners. Yeah. I think there's a movie in there somewhere.
Should be, shouldn't there? And so then you got working on My Left Foot. I mean, that sounds like a baptism of fire in some ways, or you're thrown in at the deep end.
Yeah, I mean, it was strange because obviously nobody knew it was going to become My Left Foot. You know, there were hardly any films being made at that time in Ireland. Neil Jordan was about the only person making films. There were a few people, indies like Joe Comerford, and various others, but they were making one film every 5 years. So I just happened to pitch in. When I came back from America as a failed actor, I rang up the only media lawyer in Ireland at that time, and he just happened. And I had done a law degree, and I basically said, "I'm coming to work for you." I knew his brother a little, and I said, "I'm coming to work for you." And the film that he was working on the financing of was My Left Foot. So within 3 months, I jumped out of the law office and onto the production, and that was just fantastic. I mean, it was amazing to see a film like that being made, and obviously Daniel had just come off the back of Unbearable Lightness of Being and My Beautiful Laundrette and films like that, and was kind of red hot. So that made it all very exciting. But obviously nobody knew it was going to become an Oscar-nominated, Oscar-winning film. And actually that didn't happen. We shot the film in 88, and it didn't go to the Oscars until 1990. So it was glorious, except for the fact that I came off that film and there was no other film to go on to. So I had to go to London for the next chapter.
Right, there just wasn't an industry there to be involved with.
There was no industry. I mean, there's a very big industry now, which really started in 1993 when the present president of Ireland was the Minister for Arts, and he revitalized the Irish Film Board, which is the equivalent to the BFI over here. And that has really invested a lot of money, along with the tax scheme, which I know is also in Britain. And, you know, it's had its ups and downs, but really since 1993, we have had an industry here. Whereas in 88, when I started, there was nothing going on.
Yeah, and all those, but yeah, I mean, those people at the early days of that Irish industry were sort of moving. You know, Neil Jordan very swiftly sort of moves on and makes things like Mona Lisa and stuff that's outside of Ireland, obviously. Yeah,
he was sort of the leading light. But interestingly, Jim Sheridan and he had worked together in theatre in a small theatre called the Project Arts Centre. So Jim and he knew each other very well. And I suppose, you know, Jim kind of was jealous of what he was doing probably, and went to New York Film School and did a course there. And out of that came My Left Foot, which was pretty amazing, really. And I mean, for Jim, I mean, I think I may be right in saying that he's the only director whose first 3 films were Oscar nominated.
That's amazing. And so when you went to London, I mean, like, you know, I mean, my mum is Irish, Northern Irish Catholic, and
yes, I heard that on your great interview with Gabriel Byrne.
That was a wonder. I really enjoyed that conversation. His book is a fascinating read.
It is, and his stage show is even better. So you must try and see that at some point. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to. That's the only downside of living in Italy, is I don't get to see much theatre, which I should do, because there are theatres around which have brilliant productions showing. And I don't see any stand-up comedy, which I used to love when I was at Liverpool. And of course, you are intimately involved in.
I am. I have lived for 25 years among stand-up comedians, which is a wild and wonderful circus, as you know.
Yeah. I mean, I fancied myself a little bit, not a stand-up comedian, but a performance poet in the sort of John Hegley mold. Attila the stockbroker, that sort of. Do you remember him? He was a long time ago.
I do. There were various of those around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I was one. I was one of that bunch. I even played Glastonbury. It was my one claim to fame.
And there was brilliant. And there was a guy called Hovis Presley. Do you remember him?
No, but I want to go back and find out what he was like.
Yeah. You played Glastonbury. That was pretty spectacular.
Well, it's the poetry tent. I mean, you're getting free, which is like being paid half a week's, being paid 2 weeks of wages. But so yeah, I'm not going to downplay it too much. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. We were in a group, Liverpool. We had a little group called the Kitchen Club, and we used to try to sort of. But the other poets were all serious. I was the only one that was funny. And so I was the one that was most popular, consequently.
And why did you not keep going with the stand-up or get into stand-up comedy then?
The poetry was really like a way of disguising the fact that I was doing stand-up comedy. That it was it was loads of jokes about what was it? I did a poem called "Sex in a Woodwork Class," in which it was all the carpentry words for having sex. I screwed her, I banged her, I hammered her, I shafted her. Then I took her home to mother, who used her as a spatula. That was that was the.
I love silly poetry. I mean, it goes right back to Spike Milligan. Really,
well, exactly. String's a very important thing. Rope is thicker, but string is quicker. That's my Spike Milligan there.
When I was about 5, or maybe 4, I got caught copying one of those poems and claiming that it was my own in English class.
That's like, what's that film Jesse Eisenberg's in where he plays a Pink Floyd song and he convinces the school that he's written it? That's what the heck's that? It's one of the Noah Baumbach film, isn't it?
Right.
The Squid and the Whale. I remember now.
The Squid and the Whale, and I suppose it's a bit like that scene in Yesterday as well, where he's trying to talk to them about the Beatles.
Yes, I haven't seen that film yet, though.
You should see it. It's a really great premise. I mean, the premise that this guy gets hit by a car, and then when he comes to, the Beatles didn't exist, and he robs all their songs.
That is a high point. That's a real. There's an Italian comedy called Non Ci Resta. I can't remember the full Italian title, but it's basically there's nothing left to do but cry is the translation, and it's Roberto Benigni and the guy from Il Postino, Troisi.
Oh wow!
They travel back in time, and he's trying to seduce this woman, and he basically sings her yesterday, but he's Italian, so he can't remember the words, and he's going la, 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 la.
What's the English title of that film? Do you know?
I don't even know if he got an English release. I'll Google it straight away.
I'll look it up. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's Non Ci Resta di Piangere, I think is but I might be chewing that title to pieces.
What's your translation of that?
It's sort of like there's nothing left to do but cry.
Okay. Right, you said that. Great. Okay, I'll look it up.
But it's a great cast, and it's like Benigni when he was just being an actor and being very, very funny rather than
as opposed to a movie star.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys who was killed by the Oscar. The minute he got that Oscar for Life is Beautiful, he sort of like that was the end of him as a creative force. I mean, he's still a wonderful human being. I still love seeing him and walking. I walked past him at a hotel, which made my day. He's one of those characters.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that.
But anyway, we were in London with you, and you were sort of pursuing your career in the movies.
Well, it wasn't so much in the movies. I went over to work for an Irish company called Windmill Lane, who were famous because that's where U2 recorded all their albums in Windmill Lane in Dublin. And they had set up a post-production house and were attempting to make feature films in London, and also had acquired an Irish TV, a commercial TV station, the first one. So myself and Ed Guiney, who you may know as the producer of The Favourite and Lenny Abrahamson's The Room and those kind of things, he and I were friends and had been to college together, and he and I were sort of ridiculously titled heads of development or something in this getup, and we were about 22 or something, and none of that really worked out for various boring reasons. And I came back after about a year and a half, and myself and Ed set up a production company in 1992, I think. I worked briefly with Noel Pearson and Jim Sheridan. They had got a deal with Universal after the Oscar success, I think, of The Field at that point. And they had a development deal with Universal. But again, it was all a bit messy, and I was only there for a year. And then myself and Ed Guiney set up a company called Temple Films in 1992. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, we sort of didn't know what we were doing, but we managed to make, I think, 4 or 5 feature films in 8 years.
Oh, that's pretty good going.
Yeah, it was great. It was a time when you kind of could do that. I think it's much harder to do that now. They were low budget films, and therefore we didn't need a whole lot of cast to hold them up. And as I say, the Irish Film Board was rebooted in 1993. And I think we were the first ones to make a film under that reboot, which was a very low budget film called Ailsa by Paddy Brannock, who has since gone on to make things like Viva and Rosie and quite a lot of TV drama. And then, so we had that production company. I suppose my raison d'etre to be there was, you know, I'd sort of been dabbling on the edges of producing and being a production assistant at that point. But my reason for the company was really to try and write and direct. And I directed my first short in 1994, a film called Reaper, which I shot in 35mm in black and white. And it took me about a year to edit it because Avid editing had just started. So it was only a 12-minute film, but it would take a day to load all the rushes on. And then I'd get like half a day free edit. And then all the rushes would have to be taken off because a paying gig was coming in. And actually that film it's a very kind of quirky film. Ed described it as out there where the buses don't run. But it had no success in getting into festivals for about 6 months until a fax came through one day saying that it had been chosen for competition in Venice, which was very lovely. And actually we had 2 films in Venice that year. We had a film called Guilt Trip. This was 1995. By a writer-director called Jared Stembridge, who went on to make a film called About Adam with the Weinstein Company, or Miramax, I think, as it was then. So that was great. 2 films in Venice, and then my career has been downhill ever since.
I mean, that's what I loved about the book, is there's this sensation that you're sort of pursuing your filmmaking career, and as that biography is going on one level, and then you're obviously battling with your health condition, and cancer is going on in a sort of another time frame. But the two interact so interestingly, especially in terms of sort of, we're going to get really deep here, but in terms of kind of questioning what your values are and what life is about and what do you want?
Yeah, well, as an introduction to that, I mean, essentially what happened was after my last film, Noble, which I, for my sins, wrote, directed, and produced for various reasons, and then spent a year on the road in America promoting it and other places. I was diagnosed. We moved back from London to Dublin at the beginning of 2016, and I was diagnosed with a very advanced stage 4 bowel cancer that had already gone to a big tumor in my liver and later went into both lungs. So that was the start of a very hairy 3 or 4 years of treatment, for I'd say the first of which I was pretty much bedbound. And I had 2 big surgeries, about 3 small surgeries, loads of chemo, loads of immunotherapy, radiation, the whole shebang. So it gave me a lot of time to think, and as you say, to sort of while keeping up the optimism, and that was sometimes difficult, but actually my medics and my treatment were so brilliant, and I was just very, very lucky that all the treatments went my way. At the beginning there were literally about 16 hoops that I had to jump through, and all but about 2 went my way. So it was a real time of reflection, and the book came out of, I mention it in the book, I say I met a writer. I can give you the exclusive that writer was Conor McPherson, who recently has had success with Girl in the North Country, with his collaboration with Bob Dylan on Broadway and the West End.
Right.
And Conor said to me at the beginning, you've got to write everything down, because otherwise you're going to forget it. Not necessarily for a book, just all the technical stuff, all the medical detail, all the story of my life as it was then, because it really was all consuming. So I decided to do that. And then my manager, Jane Russell, suddenly got a book deal with an Irish publisher, and it became a real thing. So then I had to start treating it properly. And it was the editor at the book company, Mercier Press, who came up with the suggestion that I structured it the way that it is structured, which is to go back to stages in my career and then leap forward to the next stage in the cancer treatment. And I suppose the chapters are very short, which is why I think I get away with jumping between them, so that when you come back to the next chapter in the cancer treatment, you still remember where I left off, and vice versa on the career, I think. And I think I had done a similar structure with my last film, Noble, actually. It jumps to and fro from different time zones. And I think that if you can do it successfully, I think it can be very entertaining. And as it gives the audience or the reader a little bit of a crossword puzzle to enjoy. And I hope that it kind of keeps the pace up and keeps the interest up.
Oh, it certainly does. I sort of, there was a bit of, it's one of those great books where you're ripping through it because you're so into it and you want to read it, but at the same time you kind of don't want it to finish, because you kind of want, you get into that. I mean, that sounds like such a weird thing to say about, stage 4 cancer treatment, but you sort of, you're such good company.
Oh, thank you for that.
You want to stay with that voice a little, spend a little bit more time with that voice.
Oh, that's a very nice thing to say, and thank you for that. And I mean, I suppose the other thing that I've used as a tool in it is humor, because when you're going through cancer, or when you're struggling to make a film, probably, gallows humor comes to the fore, and it's an incredibly powerful tool. And everybody that I meet in hospitals, and obviously I still attend hospitals a lot because they look after me so well, but there's always a sense of humor there. There's always dark humor, and obviously there are very tough times, but even then, I think it's a very powerful human tool.
I love that the description of the doctor who you see at the beginning. You see her and you're thinking, she's just started, she's not very good, she doesn't seem to be. And by the end of the book, you meet her again and she's like instructing someone else, and her career has gone on in the meantime.
I know, I was in there for so long that I did see the progression of the medics and how quickly they climbed the tree. And, there were also, because the Irish health system, and I was in the public system here. I mean, a lot of people here would be in the private system more than would be in the NHS in the UK. So I was in the public system here, and you would see student nurses who were used a lot because there's such pressure on nursing, and you could really tell who was a good student nurse and who wasn't. And I say in the book, I always thought that the powers that be should have come to us as the examiners, because we could tell them exactly who was good and who wasn't.
Right, you're the expert test drivers.
Like auditioning actors.
Yeah. And I really like the sense as well of that you express of sort of camaraderie between the patients as well, that there's a sort of community that that everybody sort of is supportive. Of course, there's the odd sort of person in the next bed who's getting on your tits.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. It is true. And that's part of getting through it, and you start to get to know everyone's stories and what their problems are, and you're all rooting for each other, and you're all wanting everybody to walk out the door.
Yeah, as you go on in the journey of the book, you're sort of like, there are certain moments where obviously, as you say, most of the things you're very clear go well for you, and it's a positive story. And the fact that you're even writing the book, obviously, it's a spoiler.
Yeah.
But there are moments where you have setbacks as well, and there are moments when it doesn't go quite so right. And I think it's interesting as well when you talk in terms of your mental health, when you're feeling the pressure of the whole situation.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking about that earlier, and a lot of the medics were kind of quite interested in how psychologically I could deal with what was a really long journey. And I actually do think that the fact that I was used to developing films, which takes years, as you know, did actually help me, because I could understand the stages, and I could understand that this was a long process and that there would be setbacks. And there was a real psychological parallel between those things. That sounds like a strange thing to say, but actually, in terms of mental health, I think it did help me that my professional life was based on developing feature films over a long period of years, and sometimes getting them made and sometimes not, and some of them having disasters and some of them having successes.
Well, I mean, one example of that you give is the film that you're going to make with Cillian Murphy and George Martin. That I forget the title of the film now. Because
it was called Wayfaring Strangers.
That's right. Yeah,
AKA The Unknown Soldier. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like maybe I broke the world record on that one for how close I came to shooting it. It essentially, it was a film, or is a film. I mean, it's still a script that I'd like to make, even if I don't direct it. Maybe somebody else will direct it. It's a film set in the Second World War in Burgundy about 4 British paratroopers who are dropped into the zone where the beginnings of the French resistance is starting. And it's a psychological thriller when they get stuck in a house with the Nazis who capture them. And the film collapsed at about 10 to 6 on the Friday night when we were meant to be starting shooting on the Monday. And Cillian Murphy had just had his hair cut for his role as a 1942 British soldier. And it was a troubled production in the sense that it was a weird one. We had lots of different setbacks on the financing. The first of which was the most shocking, because the French producers I was working with had just made Jacques Audiard's film Un Prophète, The Prophet, which had been nominated for an Oscar.
That's just a huge success. I remember it. It's an amazing film.
And the French TV company that was concerned pulled their financing, on the first week of pre-production. And that was kind of inexplicable to me. And then I replaced that with the Irish co-producers. I replaced that money, so we continued. And then on the last week, there was a whole kerfuffle about how the tax scheme was going to work. The tax money. It's too boring to go into, but that actually was kind of defeated the whole production finance structure. And literally, we went down on the last day of pre-production. And as I say, I've never heard it happen to anybody else. And it was terrible. It was traumatic. I mean, the production designer, who's a very experienced guy called Mark Geraghty, who at the moment has just designed Bad Sisters. I don't know if you've been watching that on Apple Plus. It's a Sharon series. He designed that. He's designed lots of things. He designed Calvary for John McDonough. So he was with me in the trenches in France. And he said to me, you're going to have to treat this like a death. You're going to have to grieve for your production, because when you get to the last day of pre-production, the film is in your head. You've prepped it. You've cast it. The cast are all with you. The crew are all with you. You've tested explosives, etc., etc. And you've persuaded George Martin to make his feature film debut at the age of 88 or what he was then. And he would have been fantastic. He was an amazing match for Cillian. So Cillian was playing his character at a much younger age when he went to fight in France. And then George Martin was playing the character in old age, going back to visit a woman now in her 60s, but who he had saved as a baby in the story of the film. And George would have been wonderful. It was there was a great night when I took Cillian to meet George at his flat in London. And I suppose Cillian might have been a bit nervous that this was, he's a massive Beatles fan. I mean, I can't tell you what a huge Beatles fan he is. So he was nervous not only to meet George, but he was also nervous about working in a film with somebody who hadn't acted before. Now, I had seen loads of George on film, so I knew how brilliant he was. The BBC had just made an arena called George Martin Presents, in which there's loads of stuff with him on camera, kind of doing bits of acting in front of the Beatles and stuff. It's a great film. So I knew that he was going to be brilliant, but I suppose Cillian was a little bit nervous about it. So George mixed us martinis. There's a scene of him doing that in that BBC documentary when he was 40 or something with the Beatles, and the Beatles taking the piss out of him and saying he's going to be the next James Bond. But anyway, he mixed us these martinis and sat us down. And then he said, he looked Cillian in the eyes and he said, so Cillian, where did you train? I trained at Lambda. And of course, Cillian, I don't think it had any formal training. So kind of pulled the rug out from underneath him. And after that happened, then Cillian was just laughing, and we had a great night. And and Killian said to me, no, you're totally right about me. He's going to be amazing.
Oh, brilliant! God, that's so tragic, because obviously that it's those films that didn't get made. They look like the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi at the end of Return of the Jedi, the sort of blue shimmering thing that stands beside you.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm that it took a long time to get over it. The only reason that psychologically I really did get over it was that I already knew that I had financed Noble.
Right.
And I was able to go straight back onto that. And I wrote a couple more drafts of that straight away. And within 9 months of the collapse of Wayfaring Strangers, I was in Saigon with a DOP and the producer recceing to make that film. And that's the only reason that I kind of survived my fall in France, as I call it.
How could you keep your anxiety down when you're, because I mean that would be I would just be thinking it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again.
No, you're so right, John. It's really interesting that you say that, because that's exactly how I felt. And I was producing Noble and raising the money for Noble, and I had to talk to the financiers constantly, and I had it in the back of my mind. And I remember being on a recce in Liverpool. Actually, we shot a lot of it in Liverpool. We shot all the Dublin stuff in Liverpool and Barrow in Furness.
Oh, both my towns.
Yeah, both your towns. Yeah. And I remember being on a recce with 25 heads of department late on in pre-production, and getting a call from one of the financiers who had some issue to bring up, and just feeling in the pit of my stomach the dread that it was going to happen again. But fortunately it didn't, and Noble was a wonderful experience. We shot it in Saigon and Barrow in Furness and Liverpool, and it was just an incredible experience. So that made up for the fall in France. But you're right, it was a big tragedy not seeing George, not getting that performance on screen. And I'm still going to make that film, though. It's still there, that because it's a period film set in the Second World War, it's still very makeable.
Yeah.
I may not direct it. I may try and get a much more bankable, as the term they use in the business, a much more bankable director to do it. It's not an expensive film. I mean, it could do with some really top line cast to help it in terms of distribution. But I wrote it specifically, for it not to be. It's a very claustrophobic psychological thriller set in a big old farmhouse in France. And of course, I had found the perfect big old farmhouse, and that was another tragedy, which was that we never got to use it.
God damn it. But then, I mean, as you say, if you're ready to go, you have some of those ideas are already there. You want some of that lovely streamer cash. You want someone to come along with some of the spontaneous.
Yeah, listen, it's there. And I mean, as Cillian Murphy said to me, the great thing is we didn't shoot a third of it and collapse, in which case nobody's going to touch it.
Right.
It's there, and I still own the script, and I really like it, and it's not expensive. So we'll get there one day.
Yeah, it reminds me. There's a bit in the Louis C.K. episode of his show Louis, where he looks around a house in New York that he decides he wants to buy, even though it's like $50 million or something, and he's trying. He goes to his accountant and sort of says, "But I really like it," and they're going, "But you haven't got this. It's ridiculous. You can't get." And I sort of think about that Friday, and there must have been a moment where you were going, "Well, can't I sell my house? Let's have a look at the back of the sofa. Let's see if there's any."
No, I know. We had done everything.
Yeah.
And it just conspired against us. I mean, the Irish Film Board probably could have saved it. The chief executive had just started his job and he'd gone on holiday.
Oh,
so, man. He wasn't able to kind of involve himself to the level that it would have needed. It was just one of those things. It was a domino effect, and you just, it's like trying to stop the tide.
Sure. But then you, as you say, you go on to your next film, and you have your Noble, and you have your an experience with that was much more positive, and then kind of life throws another spanner in the works.
Yeah, big time, which you don't see coming. And I mean, I talk about it in the book. It's frustrating because Noble did pretty well. It won a stream of like 7 audience awards within 6 months in America. And it was chosen at Cannes for this thing called Cannes Cinephile. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah.
And there were moments where it kind of could have really taken off, but in any case, it would have been a useful calling card. And I never really got to use it at that point as a calling card because I was in hospital.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. Well, interesting. It's such a vanilla word, but that when you start to recover, when you start to think, okay, I'm not out of the woods yet, but I want to sort of re-enter the world. I want to reclaim my life. How you sort of how you have an attitude towards that of like you have to go back into hospital again, as you say in the book, but you make sure you go out as soon as you can so that people will see you, so that you haven't disappeared. It's almost like you've got this strategy to reinsert yourself into the business.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Deirdre O'Kane, my wife, who's a very well-known stand-up comedian here, hence the reference to stand-up earlier.
Yes.
She had to continue working telling jokes while I was in hospital, which was very tough for her. But she also made a decision not really to talk to anybody about me, and definitely not to use the phrase stage 4 or anything like that. Because she just thought, if people go...
Hey, it's Mark Maron from WTF, here to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And I'm sure the reason you're listening to this podcast right now is because you chose it. Well, choose Progressive's Name Your Price tool, and you could find insurance options that fit your budget, so you can pick the best one for your situation. Who doesn't like choice? Try it at Progressive.com. And now, some legal info. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Stage 4 or whatever, they're just going to write him off. And I think psychologically that's probably true. And I talk about how in the book, when I did emerge and I had to kind of choose a moment in time when I was fit enough, I meet people who either didn't know I was ill because time moves so fast, they mightn't see me for year to year anyway. And then other people who did know I was ill, but didn't expect me to be walking around the town again because they'd heard such terrible stories. So it was psychologically, there were two things. One was just to get out there and be seen, almost as my former self. And the other thing was to get back developing films. So that, I now have 2 feature film scripts that are, pretty much ready to go, that I've been developing over the last 4 years, or since I was able to start working again.
Sure.
I couldn't do anything for the first year. And also I've set up a couple of TV series. I did a series with Deirdre for Sky last year, actually. So I've been back on the set as well.
Brilliant.
So now I'm kind of, I'm just back out there hustling like I was in the old days. And
do you think there's an element that, like, I'm not sure if Ireland is like this, but I found the Anglo-Saxon world is a bit like this, that when it comes to ill health and death, ultimately, I don't know, there are other cultures which seem to be better at incorporating and talking about it. I mean, like, for instance, when my dad died, I remember turning up at Cannes, a few months later, and very much the English people were like, either didn't mention it as a sort of like, I don't want to go there, or said a very sorry about your loss sort of thing, formula, I'm not criticizing them. That's fine. But I found the friends that I'd made in Brazil and, all over the world, because international journalists, would sort of embrace me and like, how are you doing? Tell me how you are. And, you know, okay. And would really, you know, I might even know them less well, but they were much more, you know, less frightened of it.
Yes, I think that's very true. And we have, I mean, in Ireland does death very well. Wakes and funerals are very well handled.
Right.
But I think you're right, particularly with cancer, because it's still kind of taboo, that C word, and you know, it's becoming less so. And I'm on a government committee now, which is to try and incorporate cancer patients' experience into the way that government policy is and things like that. But you're right, and in Ireland we have those stock phrases, you know, sorry for your troubles, and they sort of get you out of, you know, you can say one of those stock phrases and your duty is done. But it's much harder to engage on the level that maybe your Brazilian friends or whatever, which is a kind of much more personal, affectionate thing. I think we do find that hard. And I mean, I find it hard myself, even since I've been ill with other people who I know have become ill. I'm not great. And there's a couple of times that I'd wish I'd, you know, written cards and things where I didn't, and we just have to learn from it. But I do think cancer remains a very scary word, and hopefully will become less so. I mean, I know that, you know, that Joe Biden has recently announced this moonshot. I mean, I think the campaign is a few years old, but he's investing a load of money to and obviously his son died of cancer, and he's got a personal experiences there. But I think huge strides forward are being made. I mean, you know, there's no 20 years ago, there's no chance I would have survived, none whatsoever.
Right.
And it's about telling those stories. It's about telling all the positive stories and all the progress, and the fact that, you know, there's some crazy statistic like 1 in 3 people are going to get cancer in their lifetime. Now, obviously, most of them are going to get it when they're 85, and you know that's what they go out on, and possibly they've got lots of other issues. But I think it'll become much more about living with cancer rather than dying from cancer, and I think that's the big positive message. I mean, obviously, there are exceptions and tragic exceptions, and a lot of people have really rough times, and a lot of people just aren't lucky in the way that I was in terms of your response to. I was hearing about there's always these new leaps forward in cancer treatment, and there was another one this week that was on all the news, and it said, you know, the statistics are, it was a very small trial, but you know, 6 out of 10 people responded well to the treatment, but for the other 4 people it's just unlucky.
Yeah.
It's really unlucky. I mean, my own sister, who was a very brilliant doctor, died when she was 41 of breast cancer. I've dedicated the book to her, and I talk about her a little bit in the book. And she was unlucky. There just weren't the drugs then that probably would be there now for her. And the ones that were there, she didn't respond to, you know. And that's a really tough thing about cancer treatment. And as I say at the end of the book, I can't explain why I responded so well, apart from the fact that the medics were so brilliant, but I can't explain why chemically I responded so well to all the chemicals that were pumped into me. And you just have to be hugely grateful for that. And I suppose, you know, inevitably you feel a little bit of survivor's guilt for it because you're the lucky one.
Absolutely. And I think you put it beautifully at the end of the book, where you're talking about, you've used that painting by your friend, the fighter, as a sort of inspiration and a sort of pole star to sort of keep your eye on. But at the same time, you sort of reject that whole sort of vocabulary of battling cancer and that sort of stuff, because it's like the people, as you say, you know, it's just, sometimes it's just at a molecular level, and it's got nothing to do with your willpower, you know.
That's a really interesting one, and that happened because a friend of mine, who was also a friend of my sister's, actually a doctor, had written, as I was finishing the book, he wrote an article about that, about the language used, you know, that you're fighting against cancer, that it's a battle, that he died after a very brave battle against whatever. And there's a kind of feeling that we shouldn't be using that language, and that it's unfair to the people who aren't lucky.
Yes.
I'm kind of ambivalent about it, because sometimes it just feels like a fucking fight.
Right.
You know? You know, and it did. And I, you know, sometimes we're all just, and to take that language away completely, sort of, sometimes I just get annoyed and go, well, when you go through it, it does feel like you're fighting, you know, something.
Yeah, I guess some people are fighting, you know, with the weapons, with the gun loaded, and other people have been handed an empty gun.
Well, know? Exactly. But you are battling demons and self-doubt and you know, thoughts in the middle of the night, and you know, so I don't think you can take the language away completely.
Yeah. And I suppose that optimism, which everybody says is something that you have to have, you know, it actually helps you because it reduces stress and it helps your immune system, is another thing which, you know, without being too glib, it's another thing that you get from working in film, because you kind of have to be sort of sometimes stupidly optimistic in order to keep going.
Oh, ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, I described it as gambling the other day to my dad, and he said, well, you said it, not me. You know, because it is, making films is a total gamble. And my last producer, Melanie Gore-Grimes, who produced Noble with me, she came from the lovely world of commercials where they all make an absolute fortune, and you know, the weekly rates are crazy to me. And she, you know, she worked really hard on Noble, and you know, we had a decent budget and we all got well paid to make it, and we didn't have to defer fees, which you often have to do. And she said to me at the end, yeah, but ultimately it's still really a hobby. It's not a profession, you know. And it, you know, it's tough at the level that I'm working at, where you're making a film every few years. You know, it's you've got to have some bread and butter filling in with telly and other bits and pieces, otherwise you're not going to make it.
But isn't that true all over our industry? Everybody seems to have a day job. I mean, I don't know any journalist who is a film journalist, pure and simple, that they're almost all got Q&A gigs, or they write copy for publicists, or they're on festival selection committee. Nobody just purely does one thing.
I think that's totally true. And you know, the days of the well-paid film reviewer for the Times who was there for 30 years and had a lovely expense account and all of that, it's really gone, because it's so competitive now, isn't it? And it's so fragmented, you know. And you make a film and you realize that 10,000 other people made a film that year, you know, and you're trying to get into festivals, and you know, you realize the level of competition, and there's a craziness to that too, which means that 90% of films never get seen. You know, it's not easy to get on the streamer platforms. It's just as difficult as it is to get into a festival. Which is why I think in a strange way, cast have become important again. There was a dip there where cast weren't as important to things, but I think cast is really important now in terms of punching through. I mean, there's so much noise. You know that, even with the podcast, like punching your podcast through, and the cast have become really important again, I think, in terms of promotion and punching through the noise.
I was on a very early, a year or so ago, I was involved in a film which for legal reasons I can't talk about. And I remember being passed 2 pieces of paper for potential casting issues, and one of them was sort of like our A list, and it had all the names you would imagine.
The usual.
And the other was the B list, and I was shocked by the names that were there, because I was just thinking, they're not on the A list. I mean, they were, you know, they were really, really. I won't, for reasons also of propriety, I won't name any of them here, but every single one of them, you would go, that's a very, very famous person. Why are they? That's a very famous actor. Why is that not the A-lister? And it was like, well, just because we can't get money with them. We can get money with these, we can't get money with these.
Do you remember that really crass thing that there used to be I think it was at the Cannes Film Festival, but maybe it was at all the festivals? It was literally a pamphlet called Star Power, and it had the lists of actors from 1 to 100, from starting at 100. So Daniel Day-Lewis would be 100, and then it would work its way down, all the way down. And it was a survey of the sales agents and how much use an actor was to them in terms of pre-sales and sales.
Right. Wow.
And it was literally a published, I mean, it was a piece, it was a little magazine that I remember getting at Cannes in the mid 1990s.
I haven't seen that, but that definitely still exists in some form. It'll just be an email list now.
Yeah, I'd say it's not as public as it was then. I mean, it was this weird. It was kind of like a meat menu.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time in the US where they used to publish a sort of like who can open a picture sort of poll. And I remember it was like between Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood for many years. It was like 5 or 6 years. And it was published by the cinema owners. It was
right.
It was like, who would you be most excited about getting a film from? Who would you sort of like, oh, this is going to fill the, we're going to sell a lot of tickets.
Well, and the truth is you could count them on the fingers of two hands,
Yeah, absolutely.
But this was literally went all the way down. So you might you might be looking for somebody at 97 and then you'd have two from the 30s or something, so it wasn't just your B list, it was your C list and your D list.
Right. Right.
Anyway, it's a weird and wonderful thing about film financing that grading of actors.
And I love the way that outside the sausage factory, people looking in are just so, if you've got that person, I've heard of them, you'll have no trouble making your film. It's like, not really.
I know.
Really.
You hear of that all the time, and then. It so much takes away from, my most wonderful experience on any film is when I cast and meet the cast and work with the cast and shoot with the cast, because that is the most joyful thing about directing a film is the incredible actors and what they bring to it and how much they improve it and how much they bring the unexpected. And, sometimes how tricky they can be, but that's all part of your job of getting the best performance and making the best film you can. But really, I absolutely love actors, and obviously you and I both want to be actors, so if we could have been successful actors, we would have been. But there's good actors, there's something just so ethereal and magical about them, and they are few and far between, as you know. And it's terrifying when you're casting child actors. It becomes even more terrifying because so few children can act. And so those are the two divides of it, how much respect I have and how much love I have for actors. And then you have, you get involved in having discussions with sales agents, which are about, pieces of meat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking at Don't Worry, Darling and all the sort of stories coming out there, and you're thinking Harry Styles is going to be this name that people are going to bandy around now as sort of like, oh, he can open a movie, but he could probably close a movie at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of you have to be slightly cynical about all that publicity as well. It's probably been good for the film. And I think I was reading last night that it's opened really well, and they're looking at 25 million for the first week in the States. And listen, job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from one level, it looks like a car crash, but then again, people like to go and see car crashes. So
Absolutely. I was thinking yesterday about your homeland and the car crash that was the budget yesterday, and how anybody in their right mind could come up with that and think it was a good idea.
Oh my God. So. I mean, it's literally like they're saying the bit that they usually keep silent aloud. It's almost like they
actually said it.
Yeah, they actually said, oh yeah, and we're letting the rich off. There's no way they're hiding it, or it's crazy. It's so crazy.
It's mad. I don't think it'll last long. I don't think it can.
No.
I think that's just so outrageous that it's going to have massive consequences.
I'm just so glad I don't live there anymore. And then I live in Italy, and we've got sort of Tolkien-inspired fascists who are going to win on Sunday. We've got an election on Sunday, so that's going to be.
I've been reading a little bit about that. It's all in flux, isn't it?
Absolutely. I I don't know. I remember when I was in university in the 1990s, we used to shout fascist at people, and we were just having fun. Nobody believed Michael Portillo was actually a fascist, or Michael Heseltine was actually a fascist. And then you get to the ripe old age of 50, and you're looking around, and oh, you're actually fascists. You're using the symbol. You've got Mussolini's great grandson in your rally on your platform, and it's just like, what happened, man?
I know. I mean, I think I'm slightly older than you, but if I say our generation, I think our generation have had this kind of, I mean, obviously there were Vietnam Wars and awful things like that, but in a weird way, we had this post Second World War freedom and not going to, never forget and wanting to go back there now. And now we've had enough generations pass that we've kind of forgotten all about it. And human nature being what it is, it's going berserk again.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, we had, yeah, but oh god, stop. Let's stop this quickly. One thing I did want to ask you towards the end. One thing we haven't spoken about. You've mentioned briefly, but it's the importance of your family in this book, especially your wife Deirdre. And am I pronouncing the name correctly?
Well, there's lots of different pronunciations. She would pronounce it Deirdre.
Deirdre. Okay, well, I'll pronounce it Deirdre.
Whereas Deirdre would be the Coronation Street pronunciation.
Yeah, which is not never the answer to anything. So Deirdre, especially, but even in terms of when you talk to your children about it, and it's such a, I don't know, it's such a. It enriches the sort of the book, and it also makes you realize how important having that kind of support is.
Oh, completely vital. I mean, everything reduces itself to family, when you go through an experience like that. And if you're, all families are a little bit dysfunctional, but if you have what is at heart a genuinely lovely family, as I do on all sides, that support was just massive. And the world reduced to that. I mean, when I was bedbound for the first year, I was literally living in one room and having visiting family, and that's all that the world is. And you don't have much interest in anything else. I mean, since I've got better, I've been thinking, I should have made myself watch a film every day as an education, but you're just not in that space. You have no interest in what you're just literally focusing on your body and your mind, and you're using the support of the family around you, absolutely unashamedly using everybody because you need them so badly. And I talk about in the book how I reverted to the state of a child, and I literally did. You become childlike again, and you use the support of your parents and your parents-in-law, and particularly your spouse. And then the kids you use as a source of joy. And I say in the book that we didn't tell them for a long time until I was really out of the woods.
Sure.
That I had cancer. And, my daughter said that she suspected it because she saw a text at some point or something. And my son kind of said, well, why didn't you tell us or something? But you use the joy of them arriving home from school and them setting off in the morning and all of their routines. You use that joy to upholster your own childlike cocoon that you've now taken place in. So absolutely, family, when you have a supportive family, and obviously some people are unlucky enough not to have that, but I was lucky enough to have it, you find yourself using it unashamedly and not feeling any guilt for that, and them allowing you not to feel guilt for it because of they know the horrors that you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for Deirdre, it was so tough because, as I say, she was out on the road. She had just written a new show when we came back from London, but that became the mainstay of the family finances and her own sanity, and also, I suppose, her own. I'm going out in the world and pretending that everything's fine, and I'm only telling a very select few that everything isn't fine, and therefore living a weird double life where. She's coming home to somebody who, not only is useless to her in the ways that I might have been useful before, but she also has to do a lot of work looking after. I do talk a lot about that in the book, and that's that it's sort of, the book is a little bit of a love story to my family as well.
Yeah, and I should definitely feel that. I love the bit where you're going into the operating theatre. This is quite late on in the treatment, I think, and she's going onto the stage and doing a show at the same time, and it's just like, wow, what a situation to find yourself in.
And there's another one I think I talked about early on when I just had the first operation, and she had lost her script.
Right.
And she was demented. And she was coming in, she was calling me and coming into me and saying, I've lost the script. How am I going to? She was doing a show like in front of 1,000 people or something. And fortunately, I get a text. I describe in the book, I get a text saying I found it. And then my relief, like lying in a hospital bed. I worry so much about, stand-up. I write about stand-up in the book and what an incredible art form it is, and how I think it's the most difficult of them all. But for the partner, it's also very stressful. Like Deirdre's out on tour at the moment. She's away for 3 nights. And, as soon as I think she's off stage, I'm on the phone just to see how it went, because every audience is so different and every dynamic is so different, and every experience of whether it's a technical problem or a rowdy table at the front that really put her off and annoyed her, all of these things, every story of every show is different. And it's kind of, I'm always in there just to make sure she's fine. And also when she says, "Oh no, it was a great gig, I had a standing ovation," then that's made me for the night.
Yeah. It's almost like she needs to go through decompression. You have to, like a deep sea diver.
Big time. the adrenaline quantities coming off stage are phenomenal. Like that, 2 hours of deep decompression, absolutely.
God, yeah. That's an amazing part of your story, and it's really. As I say, it really feels like it's sort of again another level of sort of the entertainment business, sort of infringing, and to some extent, that's your working family life.
Yeah, it's the circus. We are a circus family, and the kids have to put up with that sometimes. And so the kids came to Vietnam when we were filming in Vietnam. They were there for 3 months, and we had to get special dispensation from the school, and they had to have a tutor and send back work and all that kind of stuff. So
right. Wow. What about the future then? You're saying you've got these scripts done and sort of ready to go?
Yeah, I'm working with 2 great producers. I'm working with the film that I hope and think is going to go first is a film called Fran the Man. Which is a comedy set in the world of a hapless football assistant in the League of Ireland who gets caught up in a Far Eastern gambling sting, and it's produced actually by Collie McCarthy, whose first film came out on Netflix this week. I Used to Be Famous, it's called, and I think it's playing number 2 in the charts in the UK on Netflix.
Excellent,
and that's really good. And written by a writer called Richie Conroy, who made a low-budget TV version of the same character about 15 years ago, and has kindly allowed me to direct this. But it's a mockumentary.
Right, excellent.
So it'll be a lot of fun, and we've got some exciting cast on that. And then the second one I talk about a lot in the book, The Safe.
Yes.
So a guy called Cuan McAneil is going to produce that, who produced a film called Eroct, which was, I think, longlisted for the Oscars for Best Foreign Film. And he's just made another Irish language film called Roisha and Frank, which is about a woman who thinks that her husband has come back in the reincarnated form of a dog, and is a wonderful comedy that is playing in the cinemas in the UK and Ireland at the moment. And has won a load of awards in America and just got an American distribution deal, actually. So he's come on board The Safe as producer. And The Safe is about a father and son who run a rural garage at the time of the last financial crash.
Right.
And the father doesn't trust the banks and has taken all their life savings out and bought an old American Wild West safe and put the money into the safe, and then promptly lost the combination numbers. So that's the very beginning of the film. And obviously it's a caper film about them trying to get the safe open, but really it's a film about them resolving their relationship as father and son with other various personal crises going on at the same time.
Have you had any interest or thought about turning the book into something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know really. I don't know what it can become other than a sort of after the fact documentary.
Right. Yeah. You couldn't really do a drama, or
no, I don't think so. And because it's after the fact, I think you sort of needed to be shooting as you went along, which interestingly never occurred to me. And it occurs to me to shoot most things in my life, but that sort of shows me how ill I was that I didn't even think, oh, I should get somebody to film this.
Yeah.
And I suppose, worried about how it's going to go and not wanting a film that didn't have a happy ending.
It's serious. Stephen's not asking anyone to come around in a film.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a level of seriousness.
Never occurred to me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like you've got no end of projects there, and I sound a bit like my mum, who always says to me, "Why don't you just write a book about a wizard, a little boy wizard? Why don't you do that?"
I know.
They seem to be popular, and it's like, oh yeah.
I know. It's always I've missed that one.
Yeah.
But it is like that film people did. They do want the next one. They want another war film when you've just had a successful war.
Well, that's it. I'm always pitching stuff, and I'm always saying I think about it like Gladiator, right? Where no one had made a Roman movie for donkey's years, and so that's the story you want to pick, and or you want to pick pirate movies when nobody's made a pirate movie since Crimson Pirate or Cutthroat Island.
Yeah.
You want that. You want to try to think of something that hasn't been done for ages.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, there's a chapter in my book about wanting to make a Napoleon movie,
right?
Because he had those Irish characters with him at the end on St. Helena, and of course Ridley Scott is making a Napoleon movie coming up very shortly. But so we'll have to see what that's like, because I've been talking about the writer of that, and we have an idea that's much more a comedy. But by the time you develop it, Ridley Scott's will have come out 5 years earlier anyway. So
yeah.
Interestingly, I'm doing a documentary between now and Christmas about 6 authors who are vying for the Irish Book of the Year. So that's appropriate for your podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are yet, and they don't know who they are yet. But it'll be kind of fun to do it.
Excellent. And speaking of books, what would be your recommended film book?
Oh, am I only allowed one?
No, you're allowed. Not a single person has chosen one book. They've all.
Is it like Desert Island Discs?
You're
only allowed one.
You're allowed Walter Murch's Conversations.
There's one. Is that back to front now for you?
No. Conversations with Wilder, Cameron Crowe.
Do you know that book?
I do not. No, I do not.
This is an amazing book that I constantly dip into and read, and you can dip into it because it's about Cameron Crowe, Hollywood director, forming a friendship really with Billy Wilder just before his death, and persuading Wilder, who took a lot of persuading, to let him come to his office and do interviews. And it's an extraordinary book of somebody who really gets under Wilder's skin and reviews the whole gamut of his work and talks about the relationships with Diamond and Brackett and his writing journey and all of that. So I'd recommend that for definite.
Excellent.
What else do you want? My Lunches with Orson, Peter Biskin. Do you ever read that?
Yes. Yeah. It's Henry Jaglom, isn't it?
Henry Jaglom. Yes. Sorry. Conversations with Henry Jaglom. Yes.
Yeah. That's a really bitchy book. That's the bitchiest.
Yeah, I know.
It's like Orson Welles is bitchiest. And I'm not entirely sure I trust Jaglom.
No, but I'm fascinated by books that are like that. That are kind of. I mean, there's another one here. That's probably, I haven't read it for years, but it's probably been cancelled at this stage.
The Devil's Guide to Joe Esterhazy. I would be interested in reading that.
Yeah, no, that's a great read. Now, as I say, probably even more politically incorrect than when I read it first, if you know what I mean.
No, absolutely. Esterhazy was The Basic Instinct and The Music Box and Showgirls.
Yeah, and he was the highest paid screenwriter in the world for 10 years. and could sort of do no wrong, and had his famous battle with, what was that? Mike Ovitz at CAA. You remember Mike Ovitz, who's kind of king agent for like the whole of the 80s?
Yeah, I know.
And Esterhaz took him on in a way that no other screenwriter has ever had the power to take him on, I think. So all of those stories are in there. I mean, it's just really colorful, and plenty of it is naff. But I like those kind of books where I love the color of the various stages of Hollywood and all of that. And then Stephen King on writing, I'm sure you've read.
I haven't. I've got it, but I haven't read it yet. I went through a period of reading every Stephen King book ever.
Right.
And I did it.
That's a really great read.
It's great.
And then obviously the other Bible is Room to Dream, the David Lynch.
Oh, it's so good. I heard the audio book of that, which has David Lynch doing the intersecting chapters and going off script quite a lot. If you've not heard it on Audible,
I haven't. I didn't know there was an audio book.
It's well worth listening, because David Lynch, because he sort of talks about, at one point he's talking about school. So you'll have the chapter, the sort of normal biography chapter, and then you'll have him just reminiscing about what happened in that period. And so he's talking about school, and usually it's David Lynch going, my dad loved trees, and he was wonderful. And then he says, school was a waste of my fucking time. It's a complete waste of my fucking time. And he gets really angry. It's like, Jesus Christ, Dave, it's okay.
Oh God, I'll have to listen to that. Brilliant. What else? Oh, there's a novel that I came across recently, which is brilliant. Desert Trilogy by Eliam Cryam, which has a Hollywood aspect to it. It's an extraordinary, sweeping story that goes from Ireland of the 1800s to Hollywood of 2014, and is just like an amazing book. I absolutely loved it. It's sort of, it's just kind of an epic. I found it very emotional, actually. There's all kinds of different eras in it. There's some stuff about the Second World War, and that's fascinating. And then finally, there's this amazing book called Shooting and Cutting.
Stephen Bradley. Now, I think I've heard of this.
Oh yeah, that's a must read. I mean, of all of them, that's the one that your listeners should immediately snap up.
Oh, I tell you what, your sales figures are going to reach into the high teens when they've heard this podcast. It's going to be.
I hope so.
I don't want you to go silly. Don't go silly with the money. I don't want you to go getting one of those designer drug addictions or something like that.
We will have half a pint on the terrace of the Carlton by next year.
Yeah. God, I don't think it'll sell that many. Will you be around at the festivals next year?
Probably not next year. The following year, I would hope. Next year, I'm kind of hoping is, these things.
Shooting.
It's like a hostage to fortune saying this at all.
Sure.
But I'd love to be shooting a film next year. In which case, I'll be, shooting and posting. And I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, those two films could go fairly back to back.
Brilliant.
Which is what John Borman always used to say in the old days when John Borman was in his prime. He said, you need to be shooting the next one when the last one comes out.
Yeah. I always like the James Cameron's idea as a writer. He always used to have two scripts going at the same time, so you could just move from one to the other simultaneously.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. And he probably has 40 other writers slaving away writing things for him as well.
Yeah. That's when he became rubbish, when he was able to do that. When it was just him, he wrote Terminator and The Abyss at the same time. It's just moving from one project to the other in the space of a night. Do 2 hours on this, 2 hours on that.
Yeah.
But then when you get success and you can afford to do that, and you're not as hungry anymore, then you find yourself making the Avatar sequels and going to the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
I know. Strange. But it's listen, writing screenplays is tough, as you know. So we have to forgive all foibles.
Definitely. On that generous bombshell. Thanks so much for talking to me, Stephen. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Brilliant, John. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was my conversation with Stephen. I really enjoyed talking to him. It was a real, felt like we were very much coming from the same sort of cultural background and some very similar experiences mixed in there. And it was just a real pleasure to have that conversation. His recommended books, there were so many, I can't remember them all at the moment. I'm going to have to go back over the episode and have another listen to pick them out. But his first one was Conversations with Billy Wilder by Cameron Crowe. And that, I think, by merit of being the first one, is the one I'm going to underline. And it's one I haven't read myself, so I shall definitely be digging it out. On Stephen's recommendation. His last recommended book was, of course, his own book, Stephen Bradley's Shooting and Cutting, A Survivor's Guide to Filmmaking and Other Diseases. And if you haven't already been convinced to buy it, I highly recommend it. All that's left is for me to thank Elliot Atkins for the music, Ali Harwood for the art, and thank you, listeners. You make this all worthwhile. Until next week, take care.
If there's one thing that my family and friends know me for, it's being an amazing gift giver. I owe it all to Celebrations Passport from 1-800-Flowers.com, my one-stop shopping site that has amazing gifts for every occasion. With Celebrations Passport, I get free shipping on thousands of amazing gifts. And the more gifts I give, the more perks and rewards I earn. To learn more and take your gift giving to the next level, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.